Welcome to the Astana Times YouTube channel. I'm Aseli Stubalna, and we are at the Astana Think Tank Forum 2025, where policymakers, experts, and diplomats have all gathered here to explore one urgent question: how do we rebuild trust in the international system and move from polarization to partnership? This year's program features 9 sessions ranging from global governance and regional security to technology, climate, and investments. Each session brings global experts and Central Asian voices, showing how the region's think tanks can become real players in shaping global ideas. Multilateralism is under visible stress, and the United Nations sits at the center of that pressure, not because its ideals are fading, but because today power is more fragmented, crises move faster, and global trust is eroding faster than any institution can respond. The question here in Astana is whether cooperation can be redesigned for the world as it is, not the world as it was.
At the UN level, there are 3 streams for reforms, and in terms of, as I said, assessing its effectiveness, efficiency, and also avoiding duplication. Because as you know, the UN is a very large organization, and we produce, like a lot of documents, reports, and also it sometimes happens that, there are some duplicating mandates and areas of work. So UN is undergoing such assessment and reform, and we would like to see our organizations most effective and useful and relevant to the needs of member states. So this process of reform, our reform is continuing, but the findings and assessment will be presented to the member states, and the member states should decide and tell us, how we should proceed.
Power is shifting not from one pole to another, but into a far more distributed landscape of leverage, economic, military, but also moral. Middle powers, with Kazakhstan among them, are starting to assert influence, not through size, but through credibility.
And there are different forms of leverage. And you can have economic leverage, you can have military leverage. Certainly with the United States in the negotiations about Gaza, there was economic and military leverage over Israel that I think Donald Trump was able to use. But there's also moral leverage and principle leverage. And I think that in some ways, Kazakhstan, for example, has very principled and moral leadership on the nuclear question, for example, and real standing on that issue. And I think that that's a form of leverage that can be used, especially now in these very dangerous times that we're in. And then you have all of these middle powers who are themselves powerful and uniquely positioned to negotiate and exert leverage in the peace process. So it's a much more complicated world in a way than it was in 1945 when the UN was created.
And that shift in leverage is already visible in Eurasia, one of the most consequential rebalancing spaces in the world. Freight through the Trans-Caspian route has surged, critical minerals from Central Asia are no longer seen as a resource story, and multiple initiatives have also come along the way.
The most strategic one is the Trans-Caspian international trade route, which is already operational, and the freight has increased by 90% over the last 3 years. What I really believe what can change in supply chain lies in critical mineral industry, and the biggest issue that I have observed that if we look into the global critical mineral supply chain, most of it is controlled by China, and President Trump now started the recalibration of this process, right? And that's why it's so important in US foreign policy to get the critical supply chains. One of the richest regions in critical minerals is Central Asia. And if we look to the broader Turkic region itself, it is the natural economic ally in trade and economic ties to the West, specifically the European Union.
Experts note significant potential for the region to become not just a source of raw materials, but a place where value is created locally.
But what I see would be possible and change in the supply chain, those critical minerals can be extracted in Central Asia, they can be processed in Central Asia, and then brought by the US and the Western European countries to their own companies in Eastern Europe, on Central and Eastern Europe, where they can operate and produce much cheaper goods. That way we can have much cheaper smartphones, much cheaper automotive industry, and this would benefit not only the countries of Central Eastern Europe, Central Asia, or the West in general, but in general the whole world, because we would have cheaper products. So I see many opportunities.
The recent peace deal between Azerbaijan and Armenia brokered in Washington might have shifted the strategic balance across Eurasia, and it is also expected to reshape regional connectivity, especially once a transit corridor linking Azerbaijan to its Nakhchivan exclave through southern Armenia becomes operational.
What it specifically has is the potential to further increase the capacity of the Trans-Caspian freight, because the current transportation goes through Baku, Tbilisi, and then later to Turkey or to the port of Supsa, which is not as operational right now because of the Russia-Ukraine war and because of the destabilized Black Sea region. So the current route goes only through Turkey, and then later through Bosphorus, to European market, or through the ports to the global arena. But the trip, in short, gives a very strategic opportunity to further increase the capacity of these routes.
Rebuilding trust now depends on performance, not promises, and that includes technology. The real question isn't just who develops AI, but who can manage it responsibly, in a way that society actually trusts.
I think that countries should focus mostly on the societal aspect, so the impact of AI, but also on the literacy on AI and the development of a strong capability within the country to address not only the technology, but also be able to address the impacts, to address the positive and the negative consequences of AI, and to have that as a national priority, but also as an education priority.
The Astana Think Tank Forum doesn't end when the sessions do. It's launching InsightsCentral.Asia, a new digital platform that connects Central Asian expertise with the world. The platform features a streamlined interface with advanced publication search and filtering tools, positioning it as a practical hub for regional academic collaboration. It already brings together a growing library of scientific papers, policy research, and joint initiatives, creating a unified digital space for Central Asia's knowledge ecosystem. At a time when mistrust often dominates headlines, Astana is offering something different: dialogue grounded in ideas. The hope is that from there, words can turn into action and analysis into real partnership. This was Asiela Stubalna reporting for the Astana Times.